soon, so it's fine. So I'd like to say a very big welcome to all of you. I mean, it's the second edition of Leadership 2050 Summit 2024. I think the first edition was in 2022, if I'm right, either 2021 or 2022. And I was privileged to be one of the speakers. I must say, this is a very laudable idea by the organizers of this very important leadership witness. And I would like to first of all say thank you all for being part of this. Our world today has been described in so many different ways. Described as a VUCA world, meaning it's very volatile, uncertain. It has a lot of complexities and it's ambiguous. Some of the strategies have also described this as bunny, ambiguous, nonlinear, and all many others. Now we even have a word called tuna. And so you realize that our world today has so many uncertainties, and looking into the next few decades, honestly speaking, we don't know what is going to happen. But I would like to say that I am happy and very enthused to be part of this because this is actually characterized by grooming, coaching, and preparing you all for the next generation. And we are looking at 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the line. You are going to man the affairs of this world, not just Africa, the affairs of this world. So for me, leadership is what we need to change the narrative. Leadership is what we all need to turn things around, especially in the African continent. And you being here today tells me that you are prepared to take the mantle from some of us and run the affairs of Africa and run the affairs of the world in a better way. Being a leader for me entails great responsibility. So it's not just about the title that we all see and find others have, but it tells us that there is a lot of responsibility that is bestowed on leaders. So once you decide that you want to be called a leader, whether by authority at work or by your leadership attributes in a group like what we have today, or you leading whatever kind of group you're leading, it tells you that the responsibility is on you to serve. Leadership is about service. If you cannot serve, I don't think that you should even want to become a leader. So for me, it's about provision of continuous direction, inspiring others, motivating others, harnessing and developing talents and individuals like yourself that will take the world to the next level, that will take Africa to the next level, that will take businesses to the next level. And it cannot be done if we don't have leaders like yourself in a few years to come running the affairs of Africa and the continent at large and the world at large. For me, I think it is also about teamwork and building symbolic and symbiotic relationships among ourselves. How can we do this? Today, we are happy to see people from all over the world. The speakers are coming from diverse cultures, different countries, and you yourself as young leaders are coming across Africa and across the globe. So it tells you that strategic partnership, collaboration, symbiotic relationships that have mutual benefit is what leaders today, tomorrow, and the future wants to have. And so as we listen to the various speakers during and beyond today, I think what I want to push out there is that beyond this webinar, forge, collaborate, have partners beyond this webinar, beyond the group NIS, beyond your smaller groups, but think beyond your country, think beyond being in school today and think about what you're going to become tomorrow and what you're going to do for the world tomorrow. So I wish to encourage all of us to listen attentively to the experiences, the lessons that will be shared, and ask relevant questions. Critique some of the questions or some of the comments that you would hear. I mean, the fact that we are going to speak to you does not mean that we know it all, but you can critique. That is why you are learning. That is why you are in school. That is why you are working. That's why you are young professionals. So I would encourage that you critique some of the contributions that comes out. Let's see the critical analysis of our young leaders and the leaders for tomorrow. Let's also have in-depth understanding of what leadership entails and what the future looks like, especially in the kind of technological world, AI world that we all find ourselves in. And I would like to also mention a few things that I think going into the years ahead, we all need to be mindful of. The first thing I would like to talk about is bias for action and problem solving. You cannot, and I repeat, you cannot lead if your intellectual capacity is limited. You need to be very curious. You need to be very inquisitive. You need to have continuous learning approach. You need to love learning. You need to seek knowledge. You need to be ever prepared to learn from different perspectives. Your worldview and others' worldview might not be the same, but you can gather and get some well-informed decisions out of other people's worldview. The second thing I want us to look at is we should be agile. More ahead of the word agility. We should be prepared to be agile leaders where decision making and calculated risk taking is one of the key things that we want to or we seek to acquire. We should also be very confident and very, very mature in dealing with our peers and being challenged, because you see, most times when we are being challenged, we take it personal. But if you're a leader, you cannot run away from the challenges that comes around you and part of your leadership. People will challenge your leadership. People would pose, different opinions to your leadership. But your confidence and your maturity, your emotional intelligence, your adaptability quotient is what will lead and get you to lead well. Another thing I want us to remember is that we need to be able to cope with the ambiguity and all the complexities that are surrounding our world today, and even more in the future. And we should be ready to champion change as great leaders in the making. Another thing I want us to remember is that in trying to drive and trying to change the narrative, we cannot do that if we don't have a wide and open mindset, a growth mindset as that. And stretching beyond our comfort zone is one of the key things that I would want you all to remember. If for nothing at all, don't be too comfortable. Don't be okay with what you are today or where you find yourself today. Stretch yourself beyond boundaries. There are so many things happening in even the African continent. Be willing to explore. Be willing to drive change from wherever you find yourself. God has created you to make a difference. So don't limit yourself to just your surroundings. And also bear in mind that the forces that surround us and the changes that we are yet to see will be characterized by so many other things. So knowledge economy is one of the critical things that you should always have at the back of your mind, and build your knowledge reservoir. Build the knowledge reservoir such that any day, any time, when you are called to deliver as a leader, you are prepared and ready to. We also find ourselves that now the world has become a hybrid system. We either do virtual or physical. Today, we are meeting so many people across the globe on this platform, but through virtual means. But everything is going to happen as if we were meeting physically. The only difference is that we cannot touch each other, but you can see my face. If the video allows me to show my face, you can see my face. I can see your face. You can speak to me. I can hear you. So we are characterized by so many different things. But for us to be able to move ahead, forge ahead, and change the narrative and also lead the way we are supposed to, it tells us that we should be aware, we should be open-minded, we should have a growth mindset. We should know that the world is not just what we see. There is so much beyond us. And so at this point, I would like to say that I really, really commend Raphael and the team for organizing this wonderful conference. And I look forward to a few days of very great discussions, experiences that will be shared from different courses, all the speakers, and all of you here today. who would also share your experiences, ask relevant questions, and ensure that you take something away. I would also want you to remember this particular quote by the 6th President of the United States, John Quincy Adams. He says that if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you are a leader. So I know that today we are all leaders here, but for me, the focus is preparing you for the leadership that we need in the next 10, 20, and 30 years. It might be you, it might be your brother, it might be your friend, it might be somebody around you. So as you prepare yourself to lead, remember that you need a network of great people just like yourself. Don't be afraid that you are being challenged, you are being critiqued, you are being asked questions that you might not have answers to today. But as you prepare yourself to lead Africa and to lead the world, I'm very optimistic that there is so much that we can all learn from each other on this particular webinar from today till the 14th. And I wish you the very best. And I pray that we will all leave this conference on Sunday very well informed. We've gathered a lot of knowledge. We've been able to make new friends. And the continuous learning that I spoke about earlier will be something that will be part of us. Long live this webinar and the series that are yet to come. And I challenge Raphael and the team that it should be a yearly affair so that we don't have a year that it does not happen. And also, may God Almighty bless all of you as you join this webinar today and the subsequent days. And I pray sincerely that may we have the courage and wisdom to lead Africa today as we are doing that. And may we be able to leave the mantle for you all to continue and even lead better and see Africa and the world at large the way we want to see it. Thank you very much. And I'm sure I have done justice to my few minutes that I was given. I wish all of us a very good evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Genevieve. We're highly grateful for this inaugural speech, and we are glad that you made it to be here today. Thank you so much. A very big thank you to you. And officially to everyone who just joined and who is still joining, thank you so much for joining. So the Zoom platform for today, yes, please. So the Zoom platform for today would actually be able to contain only 100 people. And so a YouTube link could be passed across via email so that anybody who for any means is unable to enter through the Zoom platform can also do so through the YouTube as well. So I wish I could mention all our names here, and that would take a lot of time though. But I want to say a big thank you to you all for making the Leadership 2050 Summit 2.0 Day 1 a success, for it has already started. We thank God Almighty for this particular event, and it's the second of its kind after 2 years. And let me say 3 years, after 3 years. And I can see some of our speakers here already. Excellency Yaramutola is here joining from Mozambique. Thank you for joining. And for all other speakers that probably I may not see now, I acknowledge you and thank you so much. I'm going to go right ahead to hand over to my co-moderator for today so that we have today's session exactly at point of time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raphael. I'd like to say thank you so much, Dr. Genevieve, for that great speech. So I don't know about every other person, but as for me, I had like an entire page filled with so many things she had said. So just for a few seconds, I'd like our participants to just drop a sentence or just something you learned from and that was just our opening speech. And imagine what you learned in the next hours of this wonderful session. So I just like everyone, or just anyone to just drop a sentence, or something you picked from Dr. Genevieve's speech. Yes, if your action, that was such a great quote. Yes, be an agile leader. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, your actions inspire others to do more. Yes. You cannot lead if your intellectual capacity is very limited. Exactly. You have to be open to to taking on challenges, the power of collaboration. Yes, very true. You can't, this is not a one-man thing. You cannot be a leader without the willingness to serve. Yes, you need to be curious, learn more, challenge yourself. I learned that we shouldn't be comfortable where we are, rather exactly. Thank you so much, everyone. So that means we've all been paying attention, and I love us to actually keep a note by our side, right? And so, without further ado, I'd like to invite our first speaker. I'd like to invite our first speaker for today. So our first speaker for today is Mr. Yao Nsako. Mr. Yao Nsako has, I'm sorry about the background noise. That's no problem. Can you hear me, everyone? Oh, all right. Okay, so
Yes,
Mr. Yao Nsako has an extensive experience spanning over 29 years with Unilever in leadership and managing market conditions at strategic levels across developing and developed economies. His areas of expertise include business development, strategic leadership, marketing and branding, corporate governance, and organizational strategy. He's the former executive vice president of Unilever Global Market. Prior to this, he served as the managing director for Unilever Nigeria and East and Southern Africa. Mr. Yao has played several strategic roles on boards in Ghana and across Africa. Key amongst them is as executive board member at Unilever Ghana and at trade employee associations and strategic private sector committees. He was previously the director of Kenya Association of Manufacturers, chairman at Eastern African Shippers Council, and director at Changing Lives Endowment Fund, CLEF. He was instrumental during the tenure of former Unilever CEO Paul Polman in delivering a visionary, bold, and unconventional journey towards corporate recognition as a leader in sustainability. Mr. Yao holds a postgraduate diploma in management from Henley Management College and a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering from the University of Science and Technology, Kumasi, Ghana. Mr. Yao believes sustainability is important because it improves and secures the long-term health of society. We also believe that our world is not in a good place right now. Sorry? Whose
that was
mic
a
is
background
on?
noise.
Nothing interference. I'm so sorry about that. Okay, therefore we must act. So the SDGs give a shorthand, but we must all work together to deliver more liberty, egalitarianism, and fraternity. And more importantly, he's a regular speaker on business issues, including marketing and leadership. So, and Mr. Yao will be taking us on a session on the role of the youth, or the role of youth leadership in transforming African governance. I mean, who better than to take on this this topic? So I'd like to invite Mr. Yao Nsako on the stage, and with a round of applause, please can we welcome our first speaker for today, Mr. Yao Nsako.
Thank you very much. Thanks for that very generous introduction. I'm not totally sure that I deserve it all. I tried to share my screen, but it says that I've been disabled. My screen sharing facility has been disabled, so I'm not sure who can help me.
Okay.
I think you can try again.
Can you help us with that?
Okay, yeah, I think it's working. So
thank you, sir.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can, sir.
Okay, so let's go. Okay. Okay, let me just so that I can see my charts properly. We don't have that much time together. So I'm very grateful for this invitation. I'm always glad to speak to young Africans like you. I have been told that there are 200 thereabouts of you, and that you are mainly students and young people at a relatively early stage in your career that is commensurate with your kind of age profile or the demographic that you are in, and that there are also some employers from the private sector mainly. This is how the target group has been explained to me. So I'm very grateful to have an opportunity to say a few words to you. It is not a relatively long time that we have together, so I'll try to summarize some of my points. I would have liked to make some expansive points, but yeah, we don't always have all the time in the world, so you sometimes have to adapt to what exists. So let's go. So my first point is that there are constraints in this world. The person who opened talked about it. There are constraints in this world, and because there are constraints, there are all sorts of constraints. We live in an interplanetary system, for example. So there is a certain degree of finiteness that is imposed just because you live on the planet Earth. There are many other sorts of constraints, financial, physical, spiritual, whatever it is that you want to describe it as. But there are constraints in this world, and because there are constraints, you have to make choices. That is an inescapable part of this human experience. We all have to make choices. Now, the thing about constraints and having to make choices is that we are all free to make whatever choices that we make or want to make. Everybody is free to make them. But you must keep in mind all the time that the choices that you make will have consequences. Hence the first chart, which shows the great painter Pablo Picasso. I hope that all of you have heard about him. I'm going to try, in the interest of time, not to read the charts. So if you can see the charts, I don't need to read them to you. So the main point is that you have to begin with the end in mind. Keep that all the time in your mind. Young people, what is it that you are trying to achieve going forward? There will always be consequences for the choices that you make. And that's what Picasso is saying, there's a price for everything in life. I particularly like the saying, the genius of Einstein can lead to Hiroshima. It means that even in positive, solid things, there can be consequences that sometimes you have not anticipated. So begin with the end in mind. What is it that you are trying to do? Will you still be proud of the choices that you have made now when the end comes? It is also very important that you think all the time through the full cycle. We tend to be short-term oriented. I do this. What are the consequences in 30 minutes, in 40 minutes, tomorrow, next week? But your life is a much longer process. The things that you do, choices that you make, the values that you adopt, their impact on reputation, some of them will last for decades. So keep that in mind all the time. When you're making decisions, think through the full cycle and be clear in your mind that all the implications and consequences are things that you are prepared to bear and things that you are willing to cope with. That's the point that I am seeking to make here. Now, along with that, it's important that you suspend all assumptions. That's a phrase from Peter Senge. Keep an open mind. All of us have prejudices. All of us, we come to this life with a certain point of view and so on and so forth. That's fine. But where you must always get yourself to is that the reality before you, the experience, the practice, if it contradicts your beliefs, you are willing to abandon those beliefs and go by the scientific evidence that is before you. That's the point that I am really trying to make over here. So do not become a prisoner of ritual, of tradition, of beliefs. All theory, not just superstition, all theory is validated in the end by practice. And it is important in doing all of this that you keep in mind that that is what irrigates the flows of your decision making. I've made the point about thinking full cycle. It is very, very important that you're not held back so much that you're afraid to experiment, especially young people like you. Experiment, never fear, innovate, try new things. That's how the world moves forward. This is Picasso talking about the need to regenerate art as it was. Now, it's important to consider that this came from Picasso because he was such an iconic figure of modern art, and yet he was saying we have to kill modern art, create new forms, and move forward as a result. Deng Xiaoping, who I have a great deal of time for, led the Chinese reforms, which led to what we have never seen before in the world, 1.4 billion people, significantly increased prosperity. What Deng was trying to say over here is that nobody knows it all, essentially. So he says, look, I'm not immortal, I'm not infallible. Recognize that I made my contribution, but I alone don't know it. And we too must hold ourselves in that same sort of way. In life, Xu Enlai used to say, there's collaboration, or we hear a lot about competition, but we must also sometimes make concessions and we must also collaborate. So in whatever you are involved in, it's not just a narrow range of people that you're dealing with. Think through the full range of stakeholders. That's the point that is being made here. Now, learn from failure and grow. I think that is fairly straightforward to understand. No matter how hard you apply yourself, there will come times when you make errors. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with making an error. Do not be afraid of it. Of course, be sensible about the choices that you make, but do not be afraid of making errors. When you fail at something, learn from it and move on. The important thing when you experience failure is that you should accept that the thing has gone wrong. Don't be in denial. Pick all the lessons that you can and then move on. And the quote from Mandela is essentially saying, Mandela's name comes up a lot when you talk about leadership, but even he here is saying, I keep trying. So don't think that it will be any different for you. Conditions of misery create fear generally, and we have a lot of it in Africa. Technology, the development, now closes a lot of opportunities for you guys that earlier generations did not have. The internet and digitalization are treasure troves. Make the most out of it. It's going to come down at the end of the day to how much you want it. There's so much information today that you have that I, for example, did not have when I was growing up. Make the most of it. Also, all the time, keep things simple. Keep things simple. Edward de Bono, in his famous book, Simplicity, actually says that when people have mastered things, they are simple. It is those who do not fully understand and yet want to show off that make things complicated. Simple things get done. That is the truth. Simple things, they get done. So have major ambitions, but keep it simple. Just keep it simple all the time. Extract your lessons, move on. Have courage. I've talked about it. Have courage. Never fear. Never fear. It's a message I always like to give to young people. Never fear. What is it that can go wrong? Never fear. Try things. Learn new things. Have your values. Have integrity. Be committed to what you're trying to do, and then go for it. Don't fear. It's not going to kill you. This is from Maya Angelou. As I've said, we don't have much time, so I'm not going to be reading the charts to you. I'm sure that you can see them yourself, and you make the point for yourself. All of you know Shoinka. All of you definitely know Maya Angelou. So I'll not spend too much time on that. Seek mastery. I can make it a very complex discussion, or I can just tell you simply a story. First, there's what is on the chart. Yeah, you should all look at it. It comes from Martin Luther King's speech, Life's Blueprint. Go onto YouTube and watch it if you haven't watched it. But Didier Drogba used to like to tell a story. He says, I'm a guy, I've come from the outbacks of Cote d'Ivoire, and I'm now playing at the very top of world football. I understand when I get onto the field that the 11 opponents on the opposing team are there to stop me from doing what I'm being paid to do. Therefore, it's not going to be easy. So I give the best that I can because I will not always have the chances. So I give the best. To be able to give the best, you must want to be the best that you can be. And that is mastery. You may not necessarily be the best in the world, but you give the best so that you will be the best that you can be. That really is the message that I'm leaving with you all. So all of you, in whatever you decide to do, nobody's going to decide that for you. You are the ones who are going to decide that. But all of you, whatever it is that you decide that you will do, seek mastery. Become the best that you can be at it. And keep that in mind with Drogba. He says the chances will not be many. So I give it my very best. Whichever opportunities I have, I take them. I can make this point very quickly, so I won't spend too much time on it. I believe very passionately that in the 21st century, the leaders that are really going to make a difference and get ahead are the people who master how to leverage networks, alliances, coalitions, and partnerships. And that is partly also because of the rise of digital technology, what it now enables, the extent to which people can come together. Those who do not master how to work in teams, in networks, alliances, coalitions, and partnerships will simply not be able to cope. It's as simple as that. I've already touched on the need to keep fidelity to the facts. I refer to it as having a scientific orientation, so as things. We will all, because we're human beings, we all have our beliefs, our way of looking at things, our points of view, superstition, if you want to call it that, rumors, assumptions, whatever. But what is most important is that the facts that are before us, we respect them. Whatever it is that you want to believe, you believe it. But when the facts contradict your beliefs, it is the beliefs that must change, not the other way around. The Yorubas say there are many different routes to the market. It is more or less saying the same thing. I'm sure that there are some Yoruba people in here. Samir Amin, the Egyptian scholar, used to talk about a differentiated polycentric approach. The point that he was making here was that there's not one place in the world where all knowledge resides. So we must adopt a differentiated polycentric approach. We're all in a conversation, one planet, many systems. We're all learning from each other as we move on. So keep fidelity to the facts. Yes, you have your assumptions about life, yes, but always seek the truth, seek the facts, respect them. And if they contradict what you thought before, that's also fine. Make no mistake about it. We all have beliefs. But when facts prove to us that the beliefs that we once held are no longer applicable in modern circumstances, we have to be able to abandon them and move on. I like to talk about this. Creativity is from life. If you're going to get ahead, you're not going to get ahead just by doing what everybody else does. And if you're not going to get ahead if you're going to get ahead by doing things that other people have not done, then it means that you must also be making time to go into spaces, go into places, look at things that other people are not looking at. Many of you tend to have come from executive circumstances or are aspiring to that. The caution I give you with creativity is from life is that keep in mind all the time that people like yourselves, all the countries that you come from, you will tend to be minorities. You don't necessarily represent the broad population in terms of the class structure of where you have come from. If you get or you start to rise in your careers and your professions and so on, and you abandon the connections with the larger society, you will soon become irrelevant. You talk about things in abstraction, people are not able to understand. If you are in marketing, for example, keep in mind that the majority of the populations in Africa, they tend to be peasants. They are not living in the circumstances in five-star hotels and so on and so forth that you guys find yourself in. So it is very important to stay connected. The people, at the end of the day, are the motive force of history, and creativity derives from connection with them. You all know that Achebe quoted Yeats in this, and I've talked about this. I don't think I need to spend too much time on this because I made the point of needing to take your chances. We can all have intentions, we can all have visions, we can all have dreams. But the real thing is getting things done, avoiding what I call miracles that lead nowhere, big declarations, and then you do nothing about them. And that quote there from Wangari Maathai, who you must all know, the famous Nobel laureate, the environmentalist from Kenya, I think that it summarizes it all and gives a very pointed view about what I want to put forward. So get things done. Yeah, plant the tree. Don't just talk about it. That's what matters most. Yeah. It is important because all the things that I've spoken about give the impression that if you do all of these things, then life is just going to be just this smooth road and you move on and you're right. But I need to point out that life has its bumps. Yeah. And what is important in the end, all the time, is that you recognize that difficult times will come. But when they come, you don't give up hope. You stay committed. Those who in the end are going to make it are the people, as one guy who climbed the Everest once told me, he said, the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is just one word, extra. It's just that one word, extra. And this is what Ruth First went through hell. Ruth First, for those who do not know, she was the wife of Joe Slovo herself, an accomplished revolutionary. She was arrested by the apartheid authorities. She even attempted suicide. In the end, she was blown apart by a letter bomb, but that's what she was saying. In the midst of darkness, you always have to imagine that things can get better. That tiny flicker of hope, you learn to hold on to it. And if you learn it, you're not afraid. You move on. You do the things that you need to do. We will not always have all the answers. This is Cross the River by Touching the Stones, is Deng Xiaoping's famous proclamation. We don't always have the answers, all the answers, but when we know where we want to go, sometimes we must try things. And that's what Deng Xiaoping meant. We shall cross the river by touching the stones. By touching the stones, by feeling your way, you begin to understand the path, where exactly you're going to go to get to your destination, right? Amilcar Cabral's there speaks for itself. I'm very determined that I'll stay within the time that I have been given, so you can see that I'm going a little bit quickly. Urgency is very important in the African circumstance, and this is why I've extracted Mwalimu Julius Nyerere saying, where others have walked, we must run. I think you must understand that. If you look at the condition of the African continent today, the degree of misery, the difficulty that many of our compatriots, we are too relaxed about too many things that we do. So we need absolutely to move with a higher degree of urgency. And that's what Mwalimu Nyerere was pushing us to do. Others may be walking because they are much further ahead. We must run. Keep that at the back of your mind too. So in the time that we've been together, my aim was to do this in 20 minutes, and I think I've just about done it in 20 minutes. I have talked about needing to remember that it's the people alone that are sovereign, the people that are the most important. And this chart is, of course, titled Keep Healthy, Peaceful, and Have Fun. It's also very important in life. It's not all work, work, work. Yeah? Only the people are sovereign. They are the most important. Have courage and focus. Keep things simple all the time. Be courageous, focus, but keep things simple. Because when you keep things simple, they get done. Leverage partnerships, networks, alliances, and coalitions. Get things done. I've talked about it. Innovate, try new things, fail, and learn. Keep fidelity to the facts. Do not be doctrinaire. You read something in a book, you think that because one person has said this is all that matters in life. No. Keep an open mind in all you do. So that's the summary. The people are sovereign. Have courage and focus. Keep things simple. Leverage partnerships, networks, alliances, and coalitions. Get things done. Innovate, try new things, fail, and learn. Keep absolute fidelity to the facts. Do not be doctrinaire. Keep an open mind all the time. Live and enjoy life. I should have spent more time on this, but I think it speaks for itself. Work hard, but also make sure that you live healthily and that you enjoy life, and that you make time also for the things that matter. Life is not all just about work and making money and so on. You need to make time for other things. So that brings me to the end of what I would want to say, well within the 25 minutes that I was given. So I'm looking forward to the discussion from now on. Live and enjoy life. That's the end. Keep going. The struggle continues. Thank you very much. So I'm in the hands of the moderator now.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Thank you so much, Mr. Yao. That was such an excellent presentation. And I'd like to hear from the audience now. Would you like to share what you learned from this session? And as usual, I learned a whole lot. And one thing that stood out for me, and as it relates to something opening speaker mentioned, was about giving constructive criticism. You know, we can't just continually take in everything that we hear. We have to keep an open mind. We can't just, he said we can't just read something in a book and accept that that's the be all and end all. We should learn to question constructively and make reasonable contributions. So I'd like to ask if do we have questions? Is there anyone that has questions? And we'll be taking just 2 questions because our time is fast spent and we have more speakers for this event. So do we have more questions? And then our host would select. Okay, I can see Joshua Selassie raising his hands. Okay. Okay, I don't know if I have the right to unmute you here.
Hello.
Okay, you've been unmuted. All right, so you can go ahead and ask the question.
Yes, so this is Joshua Selassie Vimenyo from Ghana. Thank you for the opportunity to ask this question. So on Mr. Yao's view on trying new things as an African youth and being innovative, I want to know his view about risk taking, such that is the term directly proportional? So the term trying new things, is it directly proportional to risk taking for an African youth? Thank you.
Sorry, if I get your question correctly, what do you say directly proportional to risk taking?
I think I understood the question. He talked about trying new things. Do you want to take the 2 questions and I answer them, or should I answer this? You tell me.
Okay, and let me take the second question. So we'll just go ahead and answer them all. So is there okay, I think someone dropped the question in the comments. Okay, so how do you stay motivated and inspire others during difficult times as a leader? So those are the 2 questions we'll take for this session. Thank you so much, sir.
So I have 2 questions to talk about trying new things and risk, and then how to stay motivated during difficult times. Yeah, that's how I've understood it. All right, I'll try to be brief so that you can get on. Yes, there's always risk involved in trying new things. Of course, I'm not saying that be reckless. That's not the point that I'm making. You have to do your pre-work and show that you have tried very hard to assemble all data and information that you can get. But if you are not willing to try new things, if you are not willing to move the boundaries, then you're simply going to be stuck in the world that you inherited. You're never going to breach the frontier and create different things. And the whole long progress of the human race has depended on innovation. When I was growing up, we didn't have this facility that we're using. Actually, I started working before email arrived in Unilever. Today, it's almost impossible for you guys to believe that that was true. At the time I started working, there were no mobile phones. Forget about smartphones. There were no mobile phones. Somebody has to look and say, we intervene to make life better, but that person is trying new things. So the African youth, like everybody else, for the reason that we have challenges in our society, and those challenges need new solutions in order that we may improve the lives of our people. For that very reason, you have to try new things. That's the point that I'm making. And yes, it will involve some risk. If you're totally risk averse, then you get stuck. And you will end up at the bottom of the barrel. That's the point I'm trying to make. Then there's the question about staying motivated during difficult times. You always have to be clear in your mind what your purpose is and what the big idea behind what you're trying to achieve is. If you're just focused on the immediate goal, you sometimes forget that there's something much larger that is involved. So I often say to the politicians in our countries, if you take Ghana, for example, there are, depending on which figure you look at, maybe 32 to 34 million people. I often ask them, I say, do you recognize when you are making decisions that there are 34 million people's lives in your hands? Do you think about it that way? Or it's just, for the short term, you are doing something or the other? In organizations, it's the same. Why centrally is what you're doing? Why does it matter? You have to keep it at the back of your mind. Now, if you are able to distill your purpose, the big idea behind why you do things, when things get difficult, that's what keeps you going. Because you remember that there is something much larger that is at stake than just yourself or your immediate interest. If you do not have a big idea and a purpose, then the least thing that wobbles you, you tend to look for a shortcut out. So I'd like to leave it there. Thanks for the opportunity. It was a short time, but I hope that it's been worthwhile. And I wish you guys the very, very best going forward in your conference.
Thank you so much, Mr. Yao. Thank you so much. And I hope to the people who asked the questions, I hope your questions were properly answered. Thank you so much, Mr. Yao. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to hear from you and to draw this amazing insights from you. And so without further ado, once again, we'll be inviting our second speaker. Our second speaker is Dr. Excel T. And I'll be reading his bio now. Yeah. So Dr. Excel T. Upoho is a business performance lead at Shell Global International in Netherlands and a staff member of Nigeria LNG Limited. He has a background in petroleum engineering and geosciences, an HND, from the Petroleum Training Institute, and he has a bachelor's in geology from Delta State University, a diploma in operations management from the University of Cape Town, South Africa, a master's degree in process technology and management from the University of Strathclyde, Glasgow, UK, an MBA in energy sustainability from the University of Cumbria, UK, a doctorate of business administration with emphasis in management at the Grand Canyon University, Arizona, USA. Dr. Excel's professional certifications further validate his expertise and commitment to quality. He is a certified manager of quality and organizational excellence, CMQE, by the American Society of Quality, and is currently pursuing an associate business strategy professional from the Institute of Business Strategy, Texas, USA. He's also a member of the Society of Petroleum Engineers, the International Society of Automation, and the Institute of Gas Engineers and Managers. He's the current Secretary General of the Nigeria Gas Association and also a fellow of the Institute of Management Consultants. Wow. He's a youth development strategist and founder of the Youth Resource Center, Bonny Island, a non-profit organization that aims to raise leaders and role models in our community through education. He's currently working on the Young Options Project, the business strategies for startups and business coach for under 40 CEOs. He loves to play badminton and chess. And more importantly, he's a husband of one and a father of many. So Dr. Excel will be taking us on a session on preparing yourself for leadership in the fifth industrial revolution, in this current revolutionary, what should I call it now? And he'll be telling us about how we can, or the influence of digital technology. So with your virtual round of applauses, I'd like you to welcome Dr. Excel T. Upoho. Dr. Excel, you have the mic now. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much, Favor. Please, can you confirm that you can hear me loud and clear?
Yes, you can hear you loud and clearly. Loudly and clearly. And we can see your screen as well.
Great. Thank you very much.
Sir.
Yes, thanks. And thank you very much for having me once again. I was here first edition and second edition. Again, thanks to Raphael. I cannot say thank you enough, Raphael, for the great job you're doing, putting this leadership summit together, yourself and the team. And I've seen that it's grown over the years, and we keep expanding the frontier. So thank you very much for what you're doing. Thank you to every other person that is supporting them in bringing this to reality. Also, thank you to the speakers as well, the keynote speaker, and it's just a delight listening to Mr. Yao. Mr. Yao is someone that I'd actually just have wished, when he was in Unilever, like, oh, if I can ever meet this man one day. And here I am today, just listening to wisdom from Mr. Yao. Thank you, Mr. Yao, for all of those nuggets that you this evening. Thank you very much. Again, it's 30 minutes for this. My time, I'm sure, start counting already. And we're going to be looking at preparing yourself for leadership in the 5th Industrial Revolution. But before we jump into this, I just want to test something. Confirm you can see my slide, right?
You can see your slide, sir.
Okay, great. Yes, so here I have a picture. What are your thoughts on this image? I just want to go into the chat and just see people putting their thoughts. If you see this picture, it's an image that was taken of the globe in the night, right? So somebody has gone to different sections of the earth and snapped pictures and put them together. So it's a night view of the world. So let me hear, what do you think about this image when it's, just looking at it? So if you can go into the chat box and just put in your comments. Okay, the group, I can't see any comments in the chat. I hope you guys can hear me. Oh, okay, they're coming now. Okay, great. Okay, I can see them. What a deep image in civilization. Africa is darker than the other continents. Africa is hungry for illumination. Oh, that's deep. The picture entails a map of different continents. Okay, Africa continent standing above, mostly with no light. Brightness in the world, in the Western world, climate change. I think there's many dark places. The dark part on Africa, that's Rejoice. It symbolizes Africa as a dark continent. Rejoice, thanks for that. Peter, light and darkness at the time. Richard, Africa has more potential for growth. Thank you. Chukuma, light and darkness, developed and underdeveloped. That's Chukuma. Thank you very much. You see, Africa lacks light, and Benedict, Africa is darker. Misoye said there are much light on other sides. Theophilus, my namesake, a lot of what looks like digital signals got done. The Africa continent looks darker. Thank you very much. Africa, a beacon of hope. Thank you, Abbas, for that. African continent, dark continent. Okay, that's coming from K. Gottfried, light and darkness. Africa. So I think majority of us can already start seeing, where we are, just the African continent. And we can interpret this picture in different dimensions, whether you're relating it to electricity, whether you're relating it to digital, development across the world, whether you're relating it to developed versus underdeveloped. I can see all the comments coming in, and the picture speaks for itself, right? What I see from that picture is that Africa is a continent of opportunities, right? Africa is a continent of opportunities. The dark side of Africa just kind of points to a lot of, negativity, right? Disease, famine, wars, tribalism, war, politics, poor leadership. But all of this darkness that we see, gives us a great opportunity to to do great work. And that's where this conference, this summit is coming in handy, because we are here today to inspire each other. We are here to motivate ourselves to see beyond the dark spots that we have in Africa and look at the opportunities that this Africa of today presents us. And those opportunities for me they go beyond just the various spheres that we are in today, but converges into leadership, right? So why Africa lacks good leadership, and that we've seen this contributing to the darkness that we see. And that's why we are here today, to say, how can we prepare ourselves for leadership of the future? How can we prepare ourselves as leaders to turn this darkness into opportunities and change Africa to a place of capital investment, a place where jobs are available, a place where entrepreneurs are thriving, a place where businesses are doing well and flourishing, a place where we have creative minds that can bring about their creativity and bring their dreams to fruition. How can we turn Africa to that place where the rest of the world would desire to come to? Today, a lot of African young men and women, Africans, are risking their lives to leave Africa, to leave Ghana, to leave Senegal, to leave Nigeria. The other day, myself and my wife were watching a video of a young man that hid himself in the tires, the tire compartment of an aeroplane. Two friends from South Africa. The plane was going to London. And then when the landing gear was about to open, the plane was about to land, the landing gears opened and one of them fell off early, and that guy died. Like, he fell into a garden and he broke into pieces. The other guy was able to hold on until the runway. He fell on the runway and he went blank. He went into coma, sustained major life-changing injuries. These are risks that young men and women are taking today to escape the darkness that we have in Africa. So Africa is crying for leadership, crying for people that will be able to lead her from this darkness into the brightness that we see in the other continents. And I guess that's why you're seated here today. That's why you're listening to me today. That's why you listened to the keynote speaker and took notes. That was why you listened to Mr. Yao, and you took notes as well. Africa needs leaders that will take her from this position into the position that I see on my right. And the truth is, while we are crying for this leadership, the world is changing. And that's where the narrative of the Industrial Revolutions come in. The world is changing. So we need leaders, right? Africa needs forward-thinking leaders who will be open to embracing the change that is coming. We're already seeing a lot of changes driven by technology today. But if you think what we've seen is change, prepared for the amount of change that we have, looking at us in the future. And if we are projecting ourselves into 2050, then be prepared to be shocked by what 2050 is going to bring. Africa needs leaders. We need leaders that will transform that darkness into light. So what are these changes that are coming? So this kind of like cast my mind back to, the Industrial Revolutions. And let's just take a look very quickly at the Industrial Revolutions, right? So the first Industrial Revolution was when, man discovered water and steam and how steam can be used to power things like pumps, powered machines, and all of that. That was a huge, milestone in the life of this planet, that we are able to discover steam. And very quickly, that discovery just, took us off on the Industrial Revolution. And from that, we discovered electricity. Powered by steam, electricity came about in the Second Industrial Revolution. And that Second Industrial Revolution brought about a lot of things, brought about telecommunications, brought about vehicles, brought about ships now, going faster across the globe. International trade became faster and all of that, driven by the Second Industrial Revolution. Then we entered into 1960, 1970, when computers came into the equation, riding on Industrial Revolution 2.0. the entrance of computer and computing power into planet Earth changed a lot. And you agree with me today that computers have changed the way the planet was, the outlook of. In fact, if you wake somebody up, somebody that died in 1900, and you wake that person up today, the person will not believe what the earth has turned into today, just driven by the amount of technological revolution that has happened from the first to the second and then the third. So the third revolution was the computer age. Automation came into play. Mass production of stuff, using computers to produce things computers came into education, came into healthcare, came into decision making in industries and factories. And computers became, in fact, your handset, phones, all of that was built on computers. Then Industrial Revolution 4.0 came again, building on 3.0. And yes, cyber physical systems, where we are now integrating computer into production. Yeah, robots came in. We started using robots to produce things. We started using Internet of Things. The world started connecting together. We started having, Zoom, environments such as what we're having now. That's the Industrial Revolution 4.0. But looking ahead, the Industrial Revolution 5.0 is right in our front. In fact, a lot of people today argue that we are already in that Industrial Revolution already. So what is this Industrial Revolution 5.0? And as we look at the year 2050, Industrial Revolution 5.0 is going to lead the conversations and lead the way we live our lives on planet Earth. And we need leaders that understand the changes that this Industrial Revolution is going to introduce, and leaders that will be able to, with that understanding, amount of understanding, take Africa, take the various countries in Africa, whether it's Ghana, whether it's Nigeria, whether it's South Africa, take us on that journey from where we are today, lands of poverty, lands where we are begging for aid, lands where young people can no longer bring their dreams to reality and they believe they need to leave Africa. They need to travel out, a phenomenon that we call Japa in Nigeria today. They need to escape out of Africa into the Western world to be able to bring their dreams to reality. We need leaders that will understand the changes that this revolution will bring and be able to capitalize on the changes to transform Africa and our various nations. So Industrial Revolution, or Industry 5.0, is going to introduce a blend of human creativity and machine efficiency. That is what this Industrial Revolution is going to introduce. Here, machines will work hand in hand with humans. Yeah, it's going to become a workplace where people and machine will work together to achieve better results. A week or so ago, we were in a restaurant, and just myself and my kids, we're just waiting for our meal to be delivered. And then we saw this robots bringing in meals. And I looked at it and I was like, wow, Industrial Revolution 5.0 is already here. The robots were delivering meals to people. So here, humans and robots are working together. Now, the robots can focus on the routine activities, while human beings can focus on creating experiences for people. So the workers in this restaurant, the humans, instead of going around wasting valuable time carrying plates up and down, robots are doing that. They can focus on working in the kitchen, focus on making better decisions, experimenting on better menus, and delivering better experiences. That's what this revolution is going to bring about. We're going to have boardrooms that are going to be co-inhabited by robots and humans. And here, and in a way, I think when I got to this point, I was telling myself, oh, but this is already happening, right? Because there are times where we were checking out some details, we were checking out analyses, and then we said, oh, can we consult our AI tool? And what does the AI thinks, right? And you're putting in, data and asking the AI question, oh, we're about to take an investment decision on buying XYZ. We are investing so amount of money, and this is a scale and all of that. What do you think? And because the robot quote here, whether the AI application has been loaded with enough data to give us, good analysis, the app will give you good analysis. But Industrial Revolution is going to take this beyond, where robots and humans can actually have interactions and dialogue. We need leaders that will understand this. And if we are projecting that those that are in this room today are going to be the leaders in 2050, then we need you to start understanding the dynamics that this Industrial Revolution is introducing to our planet. Layered by data, artificial intelligence is going to drive the economies of the future. And we need leaders who will understand this. Right? And AI, we already seen the influx of AI apps and applications everywhere. So you can imagine right now that these applications, these AI tools are now apps in our phones. But by the time they incorporate all of this into real-time machines, when they incorporate AI into your refrigerator, for example, or into your television, and you want to switch on your TV, and your TV asks you, oh, what do you want to watch today? Like, oh, I would like to see Arsenal versus Man U. And then it gets into a discussion. The last time you saw Arsenal versus Man U, your blood pressure went high. And I don't recommend that you see Arsenal versus Man U at this point. And we're like, oh, but what else can I watch? Oh, okay. I think the last time, you also love watching XYZ and it's on show right now. Do I switch the TV to that? There's going to be that level of technological advancement in the world, globally around us, where AI is going to be very much interactive with human. Today, we are interacting with them and just asking questions. You go to ChatGPT and you ask a question, and ChatGPT goes around the whole net and fetch your input for you and give you a report. But it's going to get into a level where we're going to have interactions with with technology. We need you as future leaders to understand this, because it's with this understanding at a global level that we help translate what we have locally, domesticate solutions for us locally, and take us from that darkness that we saw in that first image to light. In the financial space, we see what is happening today, driven by technology as well. Decentralized finance is something that is becoming a global conversation, but it's going to get deeper. We need leaders that will understand this. We need leaders that will understand blockchain technology, leaders that will understand how AI is interacting with mobile payment schemes, how AI is interacting with banking, how blockchain is helping us to decentralize our monetary systems. We need leaders that will have this understanding. And I challenge everyone listening to me today that if you're going to be a leader in the future, start opening your mind, just like what Mr. Yao said. Start opening your mind now to embrace, to learn, relearn, and start, getting in what all of this entails for us. The community of work is also changing, right? Driven by technology, we now have workspaces that are very, multicultural, workspaces that are very diverse. I work in a team where, we're about 20, 22 of us in the team, and we are all, located in different parts of the world. There are people in Malaysia, there are people in India, there are people in Trinidad and Tobago, there are some of my colleagues in Canada, there are some of my colleagues, even my manager, it's in America. That's the global workspace at the moment. We need leaders that will understand that this is where we are, and we must embrace this diversity, because diversity will bring about that creativity and performance that we want in our organization. So whether you're going to be a business leader, or you're going to be a global leader, a president of a country, whatever your aspiration is, you must understand that the digital world, technology is driving the world, driving us in a way that if you don't understand this, you're going to fall victim to these changes, and you will not be able to lead effectively. Again, on the global scale, right? This Industrial Revolution 5.0, and it's already on, starting from even 4.0. that we are looking at a world that is getting into green economy some more. People are looking for sustainable, energy-friendly solutions to generating energy, right? So the world of the future is going to be one that it's going to be saturated with concepts around green, ecosystems, green ecosystems, and you must be prepared for this. We've seen the impact of global warming all around us, right? In this revolution, that discussion is really going to get heightened. And the world is going to be louder around what this entails. We're already crying that there are no investment going into the fossil fuel sector, because the world is looking beyond fossil fuel. They're looking into green solutions. So how will Africa manage this change? And you're going to be the leader of this time where this conversation is going to be really hot. You need to start understanding the dynamics of how all of this is going to affect us as a continent, and how you'll be able to lead effectively amongst all of these phenomena. So the future looks very exciting. Very exciting. 2050, as we see from today, wow, it's gonna be something else. If I sit here and I tell you that, sitting here and I tell you that, I know exactly the changes that are going to, no, I will be lying. Because the rate at which technology is driving global changes is just crazy. But how will Africa fare? How Africa will fare will greatly depend on leadership. And I'm sure in the course of the next 3, 4, 5 days, we're going to talk a lot on the various aspects of this. So please stick around, stay with this summit, stay with this conference for the next 3, 4 days. Because there's a lot hanging on leadership. And not us, because in 2050, I'm sure I'm going to be like 70-something, 80 plus, 2050 is going to be you. You will be the president. You're going to be the senators. You guys are going to be the MDs, the managing directors. You guys are going to be the CEOs of organizations. You guys are going to be the entrepreneurs. You guys are going to be the global financial leaders that we have in the world, shaping the economies of the world. You guys are going to be the leader. And you guys are going to be the ones transforming Africa in 2050. We are doing our part as of today, and you are not leading. So a lot is going to depend on leadership. So leaders of tomorrow must develop a number of skills, must prepare themselves with a number of skills to help Africa move from where we are to the next level. And one of those skills, I'm going to just talk on 4 or 5 of them very quickly. And my time is fast, man. First one here is digital skills, right? Leaders, as a leader, start acquiring digital skills. I'm not saying you should become, if you desire, please do, but I'm not saying you should become a digital financial analyst, but just acquire knowledge around digital. What is happening in the digital space? How is the digital revolution, digital industry shaping the world? Please go and start reading. If it's just a book you need to read, go and read that book, because future leaders must equip themselves, with a global digital mindset that will cut across, cultures and multiple disciplines to be effective in the nearest future. One of the other skills as well is a multicultural intelligence. You must prepare yourself, because the world is becoming so global. And your workspace, whether you're going to be the president of a country or whether you're going to be the CEO of a company, you're going to be working with multiple cultures, working with people from diverse personalities, diverse nationalities, diverse beliefs. So you must start acquiring multicultural intelligence as we work towards the future. Emotional intelligence is also going to be a major thing, because robots cannot be wise, neither can they show emotions. So even if we have them in the room, they don't have wisdom. It's humans. We've been blessed with the gift of wisdom. So we need to sharpen our, emotional intelligence, your self-awareness, empathy, your ability to regulate yourself, your ability to motivate. A robot can't motivate. A robot does not have emotion to motivate and inspire. We need leaders that will be able to do this. And if there's something Africa lacks, we lack leadership. We lack the skills, and a lot of our leaders lack the skill of emotional intelligence. That's why people can be killed in one place and the governor or the president of that country is in a party somewhere else. There's no empathy. We need leaders that will, heighten their level of emotional intelligence. We need leaders that will be very ready to be critical thinkers, problem solving, leaders that will be able to bring about creative solutions, domesticating innovations, thinking out of the box. Somebody asked me the other day, how can I start learning how to think out of the box? I said, just by the simple things you do every day, the simple problems that you solve every day, do you solve them using the regular routines? In fact, there was a conversation I went into, and I told some of the kids, I said, just start learning how to even do puzzles. It will open up your mind on solving problems. Because most times we try to solve problems linearly, just linear. We need leaders that will be adaptive, novel, leaders that will be creative in solving problems. Because Africa, we need this. Again, we need leaders that are agile. The keynote speaker spoke about this, and even Mr. Yao spoke about this as well. We need people that are agile, people that will be able to, if the facts, I love the way I think it was the keynote speaker it was Mr. Yao. He says, if the fact contradicts your belief, then change. Open up your mind and change. Right? People that are flexible. And how can you start preparing for this tomorrow? Time is fast spent. Very quickly, let me just mention 5 things, and they're right here in the slide. Because you must leave this conference, you must leave this conversation this evening with the mind to start taking action on your leadership journey. First is doing what you're currently doing it well. Start with what you're doing now. The good book, the Bible says that whatsoever your hands find to do it with all your heart and do it well. And it's kind of like aligned to what Mr. Yao said as well. The quote from, I think it was Michelangelo, that sweep the floor so well that the host of heaven will say, here comes a man that is the best sweeper on earth. Whatever you're doing now, find yourself doing now, do it well. Are you a student? Excel in what you're doing. Put your head and your mind down in your studies. I hear young professionals dig in, seek to develop competency. Whatsoever thing you're doing is the base. The second one is exposing yourself to leadership. Start reading and studying leadership books. Listen to leadership discussions like what you're doing now. And this is a great step, taking this step to be in this conference. It's a great step to in your leadership journey. And that's number 3, attending conferences and seminars to expand your mind and concepts, deepen your concepts on leadership. The 4th one is seeking out mentors. Look out for people that you envy, people that you tell yourself, I want to be like this leader. I want to lead the way this person is. I want to speak. I want to be able to articulate thoughts. I want to be able to carve out my vision. I want to be able to inspire and galvanize people just the way this person does, and then seek out their, become a mentee. And sometimes being becoming a mentee doesn't mean always going to the person to help. You can even start watching those people's videos. If they have videos on YouTube, reading their books. That way you're being mentored by them indirectly. And the 5th one, learn and develop leadership value. Again, leaders in Africa lack values. A lot of them lack values. Let me not generalize, right? But a lot of them lack values. So our Africa It's in search of the next generation of leaders. Leaders that will be more accountable to our people, leaders that will have respect, that will respect the rule of law, leaders that will create social and economic prosperity for people, leaders that will promote unity across all, zero nepotism, no religious bias, leaders that will build and strengthen institutions. These are the leaders that we need. And as you start your leadership journey, seek out values that will help, that we align with this. Because this is what will take that continent of darkness that we saw in the first image to the continent of light, just like the other countries. We need transformational leaders. Thank you very much. I'll stop here. The time is up and I'll take questions. Thank you very much. And back to you, Favor.
Thank you so much, Dr. Theophilus, for that wonderful presentation. Once again, you know how it's done. Our audience, drop a sentence of what you've learned from this session. Dr. Theophilus talked about how to move from a state of darkness to a state of light here in Africa require transformational leaders, leaders who are open to correction, leaders who are open to change, leaders who are innovative, leaders who are willing to take up, emerging technologies, who are open-minded about emerging technologies and willing to incorporate that in their leadership styles, leaders who see possibilities and are not stumbled or are not obstructed by obstacles this year around. So once again, we'll be taking just 2 questions. So if you have questions, please raise your hand or type it in the comment section. In fact, maybe just 1 question. So if you have any question, can you please raise your hand? I'll be looking through. Okay. Any questions? Flora Noah says skill. Yes, skill for the future. Read books, find a mentor. Yeah, that's very good. Thank you. Okay. I can't find the question. Someone asked, can you kindly ask your question again? Okay, all right, I've seen a question. So Ultimate Ngo Benny is asking, as we look to the future of leadership in an era defined by rapid technological advancement, how can we effectively balance these innovations with a strong commitment to human values and the well-being of our teams and communities? I don't know if you got that question, Dr. Theophilus.
Yes, I did, and thanks for that. The truth is, this is one of the challenges that the Industrial Revolution is throwing on our fronts, right? The number of ethical issues, the number of ethical challenges, cybersecurity, issues of privacy of data, and all of those, right? And the truth is, those challenges will come, right? And more will even come. Nowadays, we see cyberbullying. We see people. In fact, imagine the challenge of the Bolt War that happened between South Africa and Nigerian people booking bolts and all of that, and those are some of the challenges that technologies we throw up, right? And leaders have to face these challenges, right? So first of all, it's not denying that these challenges will come. There will be a lot of challenges that the Industrial Revolution will throw at us, advancement in technology, and this is where we really need leaders that understand the fibers of this technological advancement. You need to understand this. You need to have understanding in digital technology. You need to understand how this affects our finances. You need to have those fundamental understanding. Again, I keep saying you're not meant to be the expert, right? But so you're not throwing you because you have the understanding, you'll be able to handle the ethical challenges that they will throw up. And the ethical challenges will come in different dimensions, but and they will be tackled in their different dimensions as well. So people, for example, are tackling the issues of climate change that Industrial Revolution threw at us, and they're tackling it their own way. Yeah, but we need leaders that will be able to understand what the challenges are and be able to, face them head on, have the courage and the boldness to face them head on. And that's why you as potential leaders, you need to start building the understanding in these areas, right? Maybe I'll stop there before I start getting into too much context here.
All right, thank you so much. So I hope that answers your question, Ultimate. It answers your question. Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much, Dr. Theophilus. I'd like us all to appreciate our speaker in the comments. So I'll be calling our third speaker now. Our third speaker will be taking us on a session on fostering values and civic education to promote Africa's development. So you see how our things flow with each other. So I'll be reading our speaker's bio now. Our first speaker is Mr. Prince Ampofo. I'm sorry about the background noise. So our first speaker is Mr. Prince Ampofo. And yeah, I'll be reading his bio now. Sorry for the interruption. So Mr. Prince Ampofo is a pastor, leadership consultant, and global speaker with a passion for harnessing the transformative power of leadership in individuals. He has 10 years experience in leadership development, with his works institutionally and personally impacting over 50,000 throughout Ghana and other parts of Africa. Prince has authored 2 leadership books, A Leader at Last and its work. Mr. Prince founded the Lead Valley Academy to train thoughtful and strategic leaders who train other leaders to bring transformational change to organizations. His Palm Knowledge Center designs learning and growth solutions for marketplace organizations throughout a bucket of consultancy services. As program coordinator of Data Bank Foundation, Mr. Prince runs leadership, mentorship, mental health, and literacy initiatives. In this role, he also doubles as coordinator for the African Leadership Initiative, West Africa. Mr. Prince has been named by Avance Media Africa as one of the 50 most influential young Ghanaians, specifically in the area of leadership in Ghana, alongside Manasseh Azure and Belamundi, Thomas Pate, and others. He was also named as one of the top 30 young pioneers and innovators in Ghana by the UK-based Future of Ghana. As a speaker and a coach, Prince's wide array of engagements include speaking to medical doctors, training pastors, sharing as a TEDx speaker, speed mentoring at Assisi University, to running lecture series for a global missions organization. He's widely known for his challenging beliefs on leadership and purpose. He has traveled to engage in several international youth development conferences, including the World Youth Forum, where he worked with three others to organize a pre-event networking event outside of the forum. In 2020, he pioneered a daring project to capture COVID-19 related stories from every country in the world, a feat that led to his connecting with volunteer storytellers from 70% of the countries in the world. Oh, that's so impressive. Prince pastors the TCI Higher Life Center in Accra. He serves on the National Executive Council of the Triumphant Church Commission. He's an advisory board member of Mother of All Nations Foundation and also a board member of the Crown Heights International School. He's a graduate of University of Cape Coast, has a certificate in project management fundamentals from PMI Ghana, a fellow of the WYSC International Leadership Program. Mr. Prince is currently pursuing an MA in organizational leadership and governance at University of Ghana Business School. And more importantly, Mr. Prince is married to Gifty, with whom he has 2 lovely girls, Aseshi and Ashanti. So with your virtual applauses, I really like you to welcome Mr. Prince Ampofo. Mr. Prince Ampofo, are you in the call with us, sir?
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. Thank you, Favor.
Thank you so much, sir.
It's fantastic to have heard from the speakers so far. So many things have been said already. So I'm just going to jump into my presentation, and I'm sure that we are going to carry along very well. We have come here this evening because clearly we believe that we can all agree we are all on the same page about the fact that leadership on the continent is just critical, and the fact that something needs to change. And so I've come here to speak to more the values and much more bring it very close to us in this room. And so what I call the urgency of personal leadership, and in the sense that so many things are changing as we look forward to 2050. And so many advances that have gone on. Dr. Theophilus touched on that. And Mr. Nsako did fantastic as well. And as we look forward to such a future, the question then becomes how the people, the very entities running the show, especially on the continent, are going to position themselves and be to the continent the greatest need. And maybe I want to start by giving you a bit of background. I've done leadership in many spheres. I've spoken to young people in many parts of the country and some parts of Africa. And every year, at least by the end of the year, I do probably close to about 1,000 young people in different programs that I run, both institutionally and personally. And it seemed to me that clearly we, as young people on the continent, we all have a certain understanding or background to what leadership is. And even though, there are so many, definitions for leadership, it's quite intriguing where we all seem to have heard about leadership for the first time. And if you're on the continent, probably this may be your story too. One day you were in school, and this is lower primary. Before then, you used to hear your parents talk about the leaders. And whenever your parents were talking about the leaders, they were talking about the politicians on TV who were blamed for all our problems. And there was a certain belief, as you hang around your parents, that one day some great politicians will come along and then they will change our lives. And so when you, and as you progress, somewhere on your education, in lower primary, you probably ended up in a certain class, and then a teacher came to the class and asked of the class who is the leader for the class. And I'm sure that at that time the class was quiet because this was probably the first time you're hearing the word leader, and it was in your classroom. And when the teacher asked that question, most likely everybody was quiet until the teacher shouted that somebody must volunteer, somebody must step up as the leader. And at that point, it was a matter of confidence. So it was not really a matter of who can do the job. And so the class split into 3 groups. The first group were the people who were very loud. Those are the kind of people who will always speak up even if nobody does. Then there was the second group, those who not too loud, but they also don't want to lead. Usually they are the people who do the nomination. They are the people who step up to shout and say, "Oh, sir, we don't want this group of people." Most of the loud guys, as we know them, are usually people who don't really have any great values or moral, standards to lead, and yet they are very loud. And the second group defend, everybody in the class by fighting the fact that we don't have to pick somebody who is loud. But then there's always a third group, and the third group are usually, the everyday African who is very quiet. I'm sure most of us here, usually the third group, they are the largest number. They usually are quiet. They know how to lead, or at least they are able to, if given the chance, to be able to express their leadership over people. But then in that situation, they tend to be very quiet. And as the second group point to these people, oh, I'm sure that this person can lead, they refuse. And so usually what plays out in the class is that somebody who does not necessarily deserve to be a leader, but probably is very loud, ends up leading. And from that kind of concept, we grow up, class after class, believing that when we talk about leadership, it has to be somebody who is leading people. And as much as it is true that ultimately a leader will find himself in front of people and having to lead a course. But yeah, this evening we are talking about personal leadership to make it much more personal. And I'd like to walk through a quick story where, for example, we have a plan to put up a village. And this is a village of just a 1 acre village. And when I did a bit of research, I found out about 30 people, able men, will be able to build a village using this patch and then mud and a few and some buckets of water. And when you compare, trying to build a village to probably trying to build a city, when we mention a city, the dynamics change. And we are talking about large acres of land. And for Accra, about 55,000 acres of land, which also, because we are talking about the city, and probably considering, massive land, trying to do zoning, and whether it's a water system, whether it's a waste management system, making sure that all the complexities are done to ensure that the city is really well built. And as you think about the capacity to be able to kind of develop a village, and you compare it to the capacity or what it takes to build a city, clearly the demands are high. None of them is easy to do. And if everybody on the city project knows how to build only cities, and you put them on the village project, they will probably struggle. The same way when you put the team on the village, on the city, they will also struggle. And so we cannot belittle any of them, except that and clearly the demands of having to build a city will require very high level sophistication. And many of the things that Dr. Theophilus has talked about, and especially as we move into 2050 or the coming year. And it therefore behoves that, you see, our concept of leadership from just somebody who is leading a people must then begin to change, because the demands clearly of what we need to do heightens. So, for example, for Accra, about 55,000 acres of land in Accra, which equals, just to give you a perspective, about 42,000 football fields, requires a whole population of Trinidad and Tobago to be able to work on the project. If we are using still the same ratio of about 30 people to 1 acre, and that's almost having a whole a country on building one city, just so that we can appreciate how much demand it will go into building what is more complex and what the demands or the changes of life is drawing all of us into. So what am I saying? That at the end of the day, you see, for each person who works on that project, whether it is a village or it is the city, ultimately how they behave, ultimately the values that they carry will come to bear as they engage on the project. So you can be sure that if you have the wrong people on the village project, it doesn't matter that it looks very simple or easier to do. It may end up one of the most complex dragging projects in history. Just because people are not trained well, people are not, do not have the right, character to be able to stand and do the work. And so the more we make personal leadership, the more we bring leadership much more down to the person, to you listening, the more the chances that we will have every kind of leadership we'll get it right. So let's take out the village or the city and let's put every indicator that perhaps we are passionate about. Let's consider your personal life. Let's talk about family and all these things that we on the personal level, we are striving to become excellent at. And you notice that it's the same approach. If you are trying to build a personal life or you're trying to build a family life, none of these things are easy. It will still take a certain fabric of values, some right beliefs, a certain authenticity and some high level standards to be able to do this right. And as soon as we miss bringing it down to the individual, we are edging into a place where all of life will change. We'll be in a space, in a time of speed and convenience, and yet we may not necessarily experience, leadership and its transformations much more on the larger scale. So these are a few lessons that I put up so that we can all walk through, just to kind of bring our attention to the call to personal leadership and the challenge. The first one is that, you see, especially on the continent Africa, I tell people that whenever you are leading or when you choose to be the person who influences a space, whether it is family, whether it's in a career, wherever you stand to be, to represent leadership, if you do it right, it will not be easy. Because the continent has so many barriers that need overcoming to be able to really express who you are as a leader, especially if you want to do it right. And this is a belief that we must understand from where we stand. So I like a statement that Mr. Nsakos, said that where others have walked, we must be running. We are already late. And so it's like the demands of leadership require that we understand where we are. And the question is, where are we? We are where leadership on the continent of any form is not easy. And even though it is not easy, the wonderful thing is that it is worthwhile because it is a call to do great things and it is a call to really make a difference. And I'm sure that those of us who have come into this meeting and have assembled in this space, we have come because we believe in these things. And I put a picture here of myself and my wife when I became a father for the first time. And clearly, don't be deceived. Becoming a father is not any less difficult than running a company. And the demands are high. And I'm saying that on this continent, if you are going to do it right, you can be sure that it is not going to be easy. The next one is that all leadership is first personal leadership. Once we are going to consider, and we are going to think ourselves as people who are going to make the change. So, for example, for the city of Accra, is the population of Trinidad and Tobago, about 1.6 million people who will have to work on building Accra if we're doing about 30 people per acre. Each one of those 30 people has a place in what we are doing. And until we can make leadership more personal to them, where responsibility is carried out on the personal level, people tend to, do whatever they do and then point fingers at the people that every eye sees. But we are at that place where leadership must become personal. So much so that you must take it, if you are on this call, you are not just living here so that you can have a wonderful career. You are going out there as a role model that, if all of Africa will have to look to you, you really will represent us well. The next is that there's a certain requirement that we understand the demands of leadership and adjust our efforts to those demands. And when you look critically at the continent and all the things that are going on, you see a lot of leadership gaps that have to do with not really appreciating the demands of what maybe a job or family or school may require. If you want to be a doctor, it cannot be 4 years. When the choice is to become a doctor and a specialist, it means you are going into 9 years. You cannot do 4 years and expect to be a fully bred medical doctor. So when you take that same light and you place it in any space, there must be a certain understanding that once I am representing, or once I want to be and represent leadership, the best of leadership, there are demands that my efforts must be adjusted to. Maybe you're on this call and you're maybe you are even the firstborn of your family or your siblings. You have decided to do something different, and that is why you are being here. What it requires is that there has to be adjustment of efforts. We cannot sleep like anybody. No, you cannot be everywhere. You cannot like everything. You cannot do everything that is being done on social media just because people are doing it. Because of the demands. And it is just like giving birth, when a mother gives birth to a baby, all of a sudden it's like the mother takes on the life of the baby. The baby determines when the mother must stand. The baby determines when the mother must move. The baby determines when the mother must eat. It's the baby that is the demand, that is adjusting the efforts of the mother. And amazing how mothers are able to, fully function in that capacity to be able to still, wake up at very odd times and make sure that things still work out in the homes. And I'm saying that leadership at this point requires that we really, really understand this. At the end of the day, where leadership overlooks understanding the demands, you see, that is where you get a lot of resources being thrown around. And when we need money to do very pressing things, the money goes anyhow. When you need students to even be accountable, you expect that, hey, this is their time, they just live their life. But the demands are high. The next one is that, you see, we are moving into a space of AI in so many things. And once in a while, I look around me to see how, if in Africa, our systems, the systems we are building is making any difference in terms of even when it comes to corruption. When you clearly, it looks like even though there are many systems we are building, our systems are still not robust enough to be able to press us towards a space where there's accountability no matter who is there. And this may sound like I'm talking about the people who are the top. No, systems must be built everywhere. If you're on this call, there must be some kind of system, a learning system. Dr. Theophilus talked about learning, expanding your capacity by going for knowledge. There must be systems that you put in your own life to ensure that you're moving from one level to the other. Find a way to systemize your life. Find a way to make sure that even if it is a small group of people that you are working on a project, you must introduce systems. With our culture, generally, Africa, in most of our communities, we don't tend to like systems. And sometimes we rather think of even accountability as a way, we think about the punishment part of accountability and not necessarily the sustainability in terms of what we are hoping to keep for or a legacy we are hoping to keep. And I'm saying that if we are going to be really the best of ourselves, if we are really going to make a difference, somehow there must be systems. And I'm saying that everybody on this call must be interested in systems. Also, the larger and the more we transition into the changing world, the more freedom and then the more expression that is going to come to all of us. But then leaders who are going to really make a difference, people who are going to stand and really be the difference that you see, are people who have self-imposed standards. They have decided on themselves. There's going to be a lot of people who are not necessarily going to have any authority over them. These days, even in the space of career, there are a lot of freelancing that is happening around. There's a lot of cross barrier engagements that are going on. And so in terms of accountability, most of the barriers for personal accountability will not necessarily be that important. And yet it's so critical for people who want to stand as role models in these times. Whether people are there or not, you must still hold yourself to a high level of accountability. Whether people ask or not, you must still ensure that you are doing the right thing, whether people see it or not. And when we come to that level where we have self-imposed some limitation just so we can do right, then we are walking a very good path of leadership. And so this is, I tell people that my litmus test for leadership has changed. I think more of being when a person is able to do another person's business well. And this is what I mean. For most of us who are here, maybe you're a young entrepreneur, you've started your own idea and things like that. You will tend to do your best when it is your own business. We all do it. If I am building a team, I put in my best. But what if it is somebody who is building a team and he wants me to assist? So on the continent, we have so many stories of people who have been put in places where when they are doing their own business, they put in 100%. But when you put them in another office or you put them in another space, then they begin to do things anyhow. And I'm saying that it has become critical, especially in this time, that no matter where you are, you must excel. You must not lower your barrier because in one space, nobody is looking. Maybe nobody even cares. And in Africa, you can have many places like that. You are doing maybe a national service, you have been put in a place where nobody comes to ask the time that you come to work. Nobody really seems to care about those things. But I'm saying that unless we are living here thinking that we are going to manage other people's businesses or other people's work, I will treat another person's child the way I'll treat my own child. I'll treat another person's business the way I'll treat mine. When I see somebody's something on the street that is not right, I'll treat it as if it is my own neighborhood. See, unless we get there, leadership is just talk. And honestly, to be able to achieve that, it has to come to personal leadership. It must become personal. So a statement that I usually like to just say is that, you see, everybody is a politician. In Africa, we are always blaming the politicians. Believe me, everybody is a politician. At least you're a politician to somebody. Somebody is looking at you and seeing the same issues or the same corruption that the politician does. He's seeing the same thing in some of us, at a certain minimal level. Maybe nobody is looking, so it looks like we don't have, it's not a problem, but it is. It is. We need to correct all those things before we can then move the notch higher and higher. And so for people like us, young people who are coming up, you see, when you are cheating in the exams, whether you are seen or not, believe me, you are doing too many people a disservice. When you begin to do things that you do because you don't have oversight supervision, and generally because maybe where you are there's not much, or maybe it's your own thing. You are running a business, and you decide to just cut corners because after all, hey, this is my business and everybody is doing it. You see, what you establish in that space is that you become somebody who lets out other people, or you contribute to a culture we are all trying to, we are trying to break. And that contribution only strengthens what needs changing. What we have been fighting to change for years, when you stay in your own space and choose something because you like someone, or you choose not to dismiss somebody because the person is a friend, what you are doing is that you are strengthening what we must already be fighting against. And so I have this interesting example of, in my church, one day, as I working out some systems to make sure that things were going on well. And then somebody very close to me, probably too close for me to say here, it's close to me, who was not really aligning with the values and the things that we were doing. It wasn't that the person was bad, no, but the person was unable to meet the standards. And so just like I do to everybody, I decided that after some leadership conversations, I decided that, okay, maybe we need the person to step back for a little bit until they really kind of appreciate the demands of what we are doing. And as soon as I did that, all of a sudden, hell was broken loose. And I've got many people calling, okay, Prince, why are you taking the person out? Is the person not this to you? You know, people calling to justify, and their only justification is that the person is too close to you. And I'm saying that the more we do these things, the more we take away the core, you know, the spirit of leadership as required when it comes to, you know, personal leadership. So this will be my last slide. That at the end of the day, we are going to have to sacrifice something. Africa has had leadership remain a word for far too long. And for me, what I've come here this evening to say is that make leadership personal. It's not just about you becoming, you know, maybe achieving your goals. The good news is that once you are in this meeting, you are sure to achieve your goals. This is great space to learn. But I'm saying that make personal leadership personal, where now you become the person who stands there to make a difference, the person that people can look up to and say that I want to be like you. For at the end of the day, when we do not sacrifice, what we can become actually becomes a sacrifice. Thank you. I'll end here and then hand it back to Faber.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prince, for that wonderful session. Thank you so much. We learned a lot. Once again, to our audience, can you share in the comments what you've learned? Yeah, we really did learn a lot. Make leadership personal, yes. And Mr. Prince talked about seeing leadership more than a means, seeing it as more than a means to accomplish our goals, but seeing it as a means to be of service, you know, and that we should really look towards, oh, sorry about that, and that we should really look towards establishing robust systems, and we should not see it as a fanfare. You know, he said a lot, so I'd like to see what you got from the session. I'd like to see your comments. Yes, and we can also appreciate our speaker in the comments. Thank you. And if we have any question, we'll be taking just one question actually. So if you have any question, can you indicate by raising up your hand or typing it in the comment section? Let me see. Yes, a very great presentation. All right, so do we have any questions? So in the absence of none, all right, in the absence of none, so I like to see that, I love to see that everyone took something from this great session. And without further ado, once again, I'd like to invite our next speaker. So our next speaker is Bavia Kapo, and she'll be taking us on a session on youth leadership in climate action. Dr. Theophilus spoke about being aware of the green economy, right? So Bavia Kapo will be taking us on a session on youth leadership in climate action. So do we have anybody here who is a passionate advocate for climate change? So yes, I'm sure you pick a lot from this session. So she'll be taking us on empowering the next generation of African climate leaders. And I'll be reading her bio now. Right. So Bavia is a student of international relations pursuing a master's degree from the Geneva Graduate Institute in Switzerland. She completed her bachelor's degree in India in political science, and she has always been passionate about working in the field of diplomacy and is currently working in the field of climate and disaster risk policy. Bavia closely worked with climate vulnerable nations over the past year on their climate adaptation programs and climate finance, and hopes to continue doing so in the future. So as part of her master's degree, she worked briefly with international organizations and non-governmental organizations working in the climate policy sphere in diverse roles. So once again, with your virtual applauses, I'd love you to welcome Bavia Kapo. Bavia Kapo, you have the mic now. Thank you so much. Are you with us? Hello, Bavia. She's probably having issues.
Right.
All right.
I couldn't unmute myself. Thank you so much, Favor. I'm Bhavya. I'm glad to be here. I'm also a student like most of you. I've actually just recently completed my master's degree. A big thank you to Favor, to Rafal, and to the rest of the organizing team, especially to Rafal because he is the one I was directly in contact with, and he brought me to this event. It's been absolutely wonderful listening to Mr. Prince and all our previous speakers. I'm just like you, so it was also a great learning experience for me, a lot of lessons in leadership. And if it's okay, I'll share my screen now. I hope it's visible. Right. So, what brought me here? As Favor mentioned, I'm from India. I completed my bachelor's degree in political science there. And now I'm doing my master's degree in international relations from the Geneva Graduate Institute in Switzerland. And I have an interest in climate policy. So that's what I specialized in, and that's where I'm working now. I wasn't always interested in climate policy. It was a lot of chances and different experiences which led me here. I was interested in studying more about climate technologies, and that's how I got interested in the field. But the major motivation that pushed me to continue pursuing a path in this field and maybe make space for me as a youth leader was that when I would go home from my master's degree during my break, I would tell my family and my community that this is what I'm interested in. I want to advocate for the climate. I want to study ahead about how we can better adapt our countries and developmental paths so that it's less harmful for the climate and mitigate climate change. And I'm here at this huge platform talking about it, but surprisingly, it's not a very well recognized field of study or field as a career back home. So that really pushed me to continue working here. Just so as a small thing that I can do is when I go home and someone asks me what I'm doing, I can say that I'm working in climate policy and maybe motivate one or two more of my peers, my family, and people I know there to at least acknowledge that this is a field that requires immediate attention and immediate action and a place where we can make our space. So that's why I'm here. And since I'll be talking about youth leadership and climate action. And I'm also a student, so I don't think I can call myself a leader quite yet. I'm still learning. What I wanted to do instead was maybe share some lessons in leadership that I learned during important milestones in my own academic and professional journey. And these are lessons that might also be helpful for some of you. For those of you, especially who want to continue, if you're already in it in the field of climate policy, or make a space there or enter this field now. And maybe also for those who want to pursue leadership in different fields, it might also be helpful for you. So this is a brief snapshot of what my personal and professional and academic journey has looked like. These 7 milestones are what I picked, and I'll be sharing one lesson in leadership that I learned from each of these milestones. I can give a brief overview. So I completed my bachelor's degree in India in political science. After completing my bachelor's degree, because as Favor mentioned, I wanted to work in diplomacy, I was studying for the Indian Foreign Services exam, which is how you can get into the Indian bureaucracy and potentially then become a diplomat and a representative of India on the global level. I studied for the exam for 2 years, but it was quite difficult and I couldn't clear it. So that was a setback. So that was the second milestone. And after that, I decided to pursue a master's in international relations in Geneva. That's the third milestone. And as part of the master's degree, I completed 4 internships in different thematic areas, but all in climate policy. So I had a lesson to learn from each of them, and hopefully that's something I can also share with you. So I'll move on and do the lessons now. The first lesson I learned was finding your ground. And this is something also shared by our previous speakers. So I'm glad that that's a valuable lesson that I learned. There's no one specific path that you can take to get into climate policy, to become a climate leader, to get into climate action. I'm sure all of us here are from different backgrounds. I would actually love to hear what all of you are studying, which subjects you're pursuing in your undergrad degrees, what you want to do for your master's, or what you want to do after your undergraduation. But that's the unique part about climate action and climate policy. It's somehow linked to all of the different subjects we're studying. I'm in climate policy. Some of my friends who I have a background in political science, and then I got into climate policy. Some of my peers and my colleagues are from economics. They are from commerce background. Some of them are engineers, some of them are doctors, and they've all found their own niche. But that's the most important thing, that you have to find a subject or an area that really interests you, that excites you, that motivates you, because that's going to form the basis of the voice that you represent at a higher level as a leader. So you can see a network map here, and that's just to show that all of us can come from different backgrounds. It's just about finding a ground and making it very solid, because your foundational knowledge base is what is going to drive your actions further on and reflect when you act as a leader for others. The second lesson I learned was from the examination that I didn't clear. So at that time, of course, it was a huge setback and also a disappointment. There were a lot of challenges in dealing with that as a failure. But in hindsight, I couldn't clear the exam, and that's why I'm here. That's why I found out that I'm interested in climate policy, and that's what I want to work on. That's how I got motivated. That's how I found my ground. So setbacks can guide you to your purpose. It's often not that easy to realize in the moment, but you have to keep convincing yourself and be optimistic about the fact that there's going to be a time soon when you're going to look back and you're going to understand that this was a lesson I had to learn to get to this point now. And that's all of these setbacks, all of these so-called failures or negative experiences, which you might later realize weren't so, are going to be pinpoints in what makes you a good leader, because those are lessons you've learned, like I learned, and then you can pass it on. And that optimism can also help you guide optimism and inspire optimism in others. So that's also a small comic to show that we can take it in stride and be optimistic about setbacks as well. The third milestone was deciding to pursue a master's degree. What your undergrad does for you is that it creates a foundation. It helps you find out which subject you're interested in, if you want to continue working here, if you want to pick a niche which is more specific, or if you want to switch to a different field. So that's the foundation you create. But a master's degree for me was the realization that it is very important for any emerging leaders to build expertise in the subject that they're pursuing. So in terms of climate policy, it could be any thematic area within climate policy, but it becomes important that when you're giving voice to these ideas in this particular field, you should have a very strong ground holding you together and backing your voice and what you share at a larger platform. And now I'll move on to my 4 internships, which were actually a big part of what helped me decide that I want to pursue a career in climate policy, maybe emerge as a leader. And these lessons are a little more specific to climate action and climate policy, but I hope it can also be useful for those of you interested in different fields. The first lesson here is that there's no single entry point or a set definition of climate action and climate leadership. All experiences are good experiences. And like the network map I showed you shows that all of us can enter from different thematic areas, different subjects, but it's all linked together, and we can find links to climate policy arenas that we can enter in. So the reason I added this lesson here was that the first internship I did was with a impact investment firm, which basically identifies areas related to sustainability where private sector firms can invest their money and term it as sustainable investments in a manner that these investments actually create an impact on ground and make a difference. While I was working with this company, I was working on sales and marketing as an intern, and this was a communications-based experience, but there was also a lesson to be learned there. I wasn't very sure at that point if this is what I want to continue doing. But again, this is one aspect of climate policy that I learned. And this small aspect has also eventually contributed to my general and broader understanding of the field. So it's making me better, it's pushing me towards becoming a better leader, and also contributing to what I called, what I previously called the foundation of expertise. So all experiences are good experiences because I'm also a student, and I can understand if you find internships opportunities which you're not very sure of right now, and you don't know how valuable it's going to be to your journey in the future. It's okay. Even if you take it right now and you don't like it, there's a small skill set or a small lesson that you can learn from there, which will be useful in the future. So I would ask you to still go for it. The next lesson I learned from my next internship and work experience was that in the sphere of climate action, particularly, your social, cultural, and life experiences give you a vantage point which is unique, and this uniqueness makes it critically valuable. So I'm from India. That's also a developing country. It's global south. When I came to Geneva, and I met people working in the climate policy and climate action sphere, what I realized was that their perception of where climate action is needed and what creates an impact on ground was very different from what I saw. The reason I decided to pursue a path in climate policy was because I felt that people didn't even know it's a career path or it needs attention. And I could see that this was concretely what needed attention on ground, and maybe this is not something that was recognized yet where I was working in Geneva, because they come from a different perspective. So your social and your cultural experiences give you a unique vantage point, and giving that vantage point a voice is very, very important. I learned this lesson because I was working with climate vulnerable nations, quite closely with Ghana, in fact, on this award called Migrants for Climate. And as part of that, I had to go through about 100 applications about projects that different people from about over 100 countries were working on in association with migrants impacted by climate change. And I learned so much about how different the problems on ground are, and only those people who are very closely witnessing these problems know exactly the kind of solution that needs to be applied there. So that's the unique vantage point I'm talking about, and that's what you have to give a voice to. So you're unique and you have to use it as a leader. The next lesson I learned was that climate policy is dynamic. And as a leader, building a diverse skill set complements this dynamism. So when I said that I was working in impact investment and I wasn't quite sure if this is where I need to be, that's also one thematic area in climate policy that I learned about. And that's made my general understanding of the field much broader. So that's important because, as I mentioned, there are various different intersections that you can work in on climate policy. It can be associated with health, with medicine, with engineering technology, with migration, with gender studies, with economics, with resource management, geography, and so on. So any experiences that you get to understand these different intersections and different fields makes your understanding of the field that much more dynamic, and it adds to your skill set as a leader. because it's going to make you more empathetic, more understanding, more open to different perspectives. And that's what you have to bring together and take forward while keeping your own roots very close. So this lesson I learned because I was working with this NGO that creates decarbonization roadmaps for humanitarian aid organizations. So that's a very different arena in climate policy because it was a more research-oriented role. It was different from what I was working on previously with climate vulnerable nations. But this was a new arena that I learned about, a new aspect of what is a part of climate action, climate adaptation, and climate mitigation. And it made me more open and expanded on my understanding of the field. The last lesson I learned here was that empathy, compassion, and receptivity can go a long way, particularly due to the nature of this field. And I think if you guys remember, one of our previous speakers also spoke about how a leader has to be empathetic, especially in terms of climate action. The impact of climate change is very, very real on ground. And if we're not empathetic to different voices, to different perspectives, if we're not compassionate and not receptive, it would be very difficult to understand the urgency behind climate action. So this I learned from all the wonderful, wonderful supervisors I had who have been working in this field for a while now, and who taught me that because I was working with climate vulnerable nations, and I'm still doing so in the climate risk and disaster management and disaster finance field, you have to understand why the impact of climate change on ground is so difficult for who we're working with. And the only way to go about that is by being empathetic and imbibing this empathy towards the people we work with, towards our peers, our colleagues, our seniors, our juniors, and also in our personal life, because it reflects overall in the personality we create as leaders then. Since I mentioned so much about how climate policy is very, very diverse, very dynamic, for those of you interested in getting into climate policy and you're just completing your undergrad and you're maybe a little unsure about how you can get into this field, I also have a small tip there. It's a very diverse field. There are different actors that you can work with. So the shapes are those actors: NGOs, governments, private sectors, consultancies, public sector organizations, civil sector organizations, think tanks, advocacy firms, intergovernmental organizations like the UN and GIZ, where I work. They all work on climate policy in different sectors. So you have multiple options to get into this field. Similarly, there are different thematic areas within the field, which makes it so dynamic. You can work on sustainability, on climate advocacy, climate engineering, climate and health, environmental economics, climate finance. And this is just a very small picture of everything that exists within the field. There's no single right or wrong way of getting into this field. You can create your own path. And I hope that for those of you interested in getting into the field, this gives you some comfort that you can find your own area of interest and still align it with your passion for climate and for sustainability. The last thing I'll say here is that before I hand it over for questions, I think I was well within time. It was a short presentation. Is that the picture that you see here on the screen? It's actually a vast white expanse of ice, and it's a screen grab from a documentary I saw as part of one of my courses, where I had to write a paper on how non-human voices are important in the field of climate policy. So this film is called Utukak, which is written here on screen. It's an Icelandic film. And Utukak means ice that lasts year after year. So it's ice that never melts. It's always white. It's always there. And the film talks about how it might even be important to give this ice a voice, and relates to how it's important for indigenous people living in the Arctic, where this was shot, to have a voice as well. And the reason I put this grab here is to emphasize that your voice is important, my voice is important. And as we move forward in climate action, maybe this diversity in perspectives and voices is what is going to take center stage, because that is the only way to drive impactful climate action, which actually creates a difference on ground. We know what the problems are. We can recognize what the problems are. That's why we have to stay rooted in our culture and our social background, and then push ourselves as leaders. So that voice is important, which is why I wanted to leave you with this screenshot from the documentary. I'm also, as I said, I'm also a student. I may not be the best person to give advice on leadership yet, but I'm always open and approachable for any questions that you might have about your future paths moving forward. That's why I have QR code that you can scan and reach me on LinkedIn. You can also reach me on my email ID, and I'll try my best to help with any questions that you might have or any advice that I can give. And yes, that's the end of my presentation. I'm going to hand it back to Favor for any questions that might come from the audience. Thank you so much, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk a little more about where I come from and what leadership means to me.
Thank you so much, Bhavya Kapora. I'd like to see a big round of applause in the comments. Thank you so much. And as we've been doing since the beginning of this session, share with us what you've learned in the comment section. As for me, per usual, I learned a lot and my notes is filled up. So yeah, share with us what you've learned in the comment section. And before I give a brief summary of what we've just done, so I'm seeing a question in the I'm seeing a lot of questions. All right. So the first question says, Bhavya here. So it says, some scientists and climate experts argue that the apparently harmful gases due to climate change is attributed to are still at the normal or minimal levels in the atmosphere. And so climate change cannot be necessarily true. And even if climate change is true, its causes may be of something else other than what's normally assumed. What are your thoughts on that challenge? Have you done any research in your claims? Did you get that question?
I did. I think I got the question. So I think I can relate what Asari posed as a question here to what I mentioned, that I think people on ground have a unique perspective on what the challenge is. I don't think I have enough background to assert whether what scientists and experts claim is true or not. But based on my experience working with climate vulnerable nations and currently working on climate and disaster risk finance, year by year, the intensity of these climate disasters is definitely changing, increasing, and it's definitely getting worse for a lot of nations which had a very minimal role to play in the so-called activities which have led to these climatic changes. So the impact is definitely real. We could get into a longer discussion on the science behind it, but from my experience, the impact is true. And the challenge here about identifying what is causing these changes is exactly this, that we need to give voice to people who are on ground, who can see, who can recognize what is happening, and maybe give their own perspective on the reasons behind it. And that's why it's important to, if you have a perspective, or if you have a story about what is happening on ground in your communities, it's important to bring it forward. I'm not sure if that answered the question, but I hope I could contribute a little bit towards clarity on that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bhavya, for that response. And as Sarah Theophilus, I'd also encourage you to do more research on that. And I really do hope that your question was duly answered. And so I'll be taking one more question. So someone is asking, Ultimate Ngobeni is asking, I'm curious, how can young leaders effectively drive climate action and influence policy changes? And also, what key strategies should they adopt to enhance their impact in the fight against climate change? Yeah, that's from Ultimate.
Right. Thank you for your question, Ultimate. The first step in driving climate action and eventually influencing policy changes is that you build a strong foundation of expertise in your field that gives you a voice, that gives you a platform. You would have to stay rooted in your community and your social background to give voice to the type of climate action that is needed close to you. Networking is very important here because that's how you get to influencing policy changes. Whatever niche you're working in, if it's through communications, through research, through scientific exploration, or so on. The way to transform ideas into impact is to identify which path works for you. So if you want to influence policy changes at the national level, then I would suggest identifying arenas of getting into the government, the bureaucracy, which suits you and your personal interests, and driving policy changes there. If you think policy changes can be driven at an international level, then it's identifying organizations that you want to work there. And some key strategies to enhance this impact is going back to, let's say, if I work in the field of climate policy and disaster risk management, I think going back and understanding how my actions eventually lead to changes on ground is very important, because what we often claim as impact is not the same case on ground. So this retrospective research and path tracing is equally important. I think these are a few things that we can keep in mind as young leaders. Again, voice is important. Having a voice and finding a stage for that voice is important. So these are some aspects that we can maybe keep in mind, which can create a better impact.
Thank you so much, Bhavya, and I hope that answers your question, Ultimate. I'm sorry we will not be taking any more questions, but as usual, we can always reach out to our speakers, LinkedIn. We can always reach out to them, after this session to connect and gain more insights. And so I will be running us through all we've covered since the beginning of this session. And, I'd like to start by reading out this quote from Yara Shahidi. I don't know who knows Yara Shahidi, but yeah, she's just a popular actress that I really admire. And she said something. She said, giving back is not just something you do when you are older. Sometimes we believe, oh, when I get older, when I'm more accomplished in this or in that, then I can give back. But Yara Shahidi says giving back is not just something you do when you're older, that it's also something you do when you're younger. Like when you're young, it's something that you can do now. You don't have to wait until you gain all the certifications or all the expertise. You can start now to give back. You can start now to start thinking about how you can be of service in your community. We've just learned about climate change. We just learned about how we could be important leaders in our society. We just learned about how we could incorporate values in our journey in leadership. And we also learned that leadership is not something that is tied to a position. Like you don't have to occupy a certain title to be able to serve others. You don't have to occupy a certain title to be able to have a vision that you want to carry out. And I hope that since the beginning of this session until now, so we've been here for the past 2 hours, 30 minutes. If you've been here since the beginning of this session, I'd like to see your excited dance. I'd like to see you celebrate yourselves. Please celebrate yourselves in the comments. Celebrate yourselves in the comments. I'd like to see you celebrate yourselves in the comments. And also, lest I forget, I'd like you all to appreciate our final speaker, Bavia. Bavia, and that was such an amazing presentation. Thank you so much, Bavia Capo. We really appreciate. And now I'd like to call on Mr. Raphael. If there are any final announcements before we close this session? Are you with us, Mr. Raphael? Okay, I don't know if you can hear us.
Yes, I can hear you. Okay. So thank you so much to all our speakers. It's been such an impactful experience today. And a big thank you to first to our partners, to Ms. Aram, to Ms. Emmeline Dati from Level Up Africa. We are highly grateful for the opportunity and the live streaming as well. Thank you so much. And also a big thank you to Dr. Genevieve Duncan Ugobi, and she's our chief mentor. And then also the lead consultant at Aragonesh Limited, our strong partner as well. Thank you so much. A big thank you to the University of Ghana Economic Student Society and to all of our partners as well. I want to use this final period to just say I'm highly grateful that you all made it. And the first day has been a success because of you all. I realized most of us couldn't join at some point in time, and we had to be diverted to use the virtual system, that's the YouTube channel. We'll see if we can do something about that, just so that we can track the number of people who join for the certificates. So I'm looking forward to getting updates from me. Just look forward to that via email. And I wish you all the best. And today is just the beginning, and it's been so impactful. A big, very, very big thank you again to our speakers for today, Mr. Yavin Sako, and then also to Dr. Theophilus Excel, and then also to Mr. Prince Ampofo, and finally to Ms. Behavior Capo. Thank you so much for your time. I know for some of us, we are in GM3 plus 3, GM3 minus 6, and so on. Different time zones. I can see my South African friends here, those from Canada, from US. I saw a lot of you, but I can't mention all names today. From Zimbabwe, Chichi Rejoice, thank you so much for all making it today. Tomorrow is another day, and we're going to have the next set of speakers. I'm going to share with you the list of speakers via email, so you anticipate duly. And today was so impactful, and I believe tomorrow, and I know tomorrow certainly is going to be highly, highly impactful again, a continuation of the beginning of impact that has been done already from this event. Thank you so much. So, and lastly, I want to appreciate my co-moderator, Favor. You've done so well, and it's been a great session with you. Thank you so much for making it lively. So I would end here, and I would say see you tomorrow, everyone. And before we end, before we depart, I would like us to just say in the chat room, thank you to our speakers. And I'll be sharing with you their LinkedIn profile and email so you can get in touch with our speakers. For other contacts platform, it may not be so feasible, but LinkedIn is very feasible. So I'll share that with you for our speakers and then also for our partners. So you join the various communities and the networks and be a part of the impact. Thank you. And have a good night, everyone. See you tomorrow, 5 p.m. GMT, the same time we started today. Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thanks so much.